when we do a godly play story, we get ready. Most of the time when we get ready, what we do is we take a deep breath. We maybe put our feet on the ground. And we get our ears ready to listen. The other thing that we do when we do a godly play story is we try to come close. It's a little hard to come close right now, but maybe if you have a friend or a family member there, you can watch the godly play story together and you can come closer together. If you don't have someone there with you, maybe you can invite someone else online to watch it with you, or perhaps even just send it to a friend. Are you ready? In godly play, we are usually in a circle. Today, we may have to imagine that we're in a circle. We may not be able to come together to be in that circle, but we can hold a picture of the chapel in our thoughts. We may have to remember the warm feelings we have when we come together to fellowship. Let's think for just a moment about all the people in our church. And let's remember what it's like when we're together, fellowshipping together. How much love there is between us. And let's imagine that great circle. But do you know that there's a larger circle than that? There are more people in this circle than you can imagine. They are people who have loved God and loved neighbor through the years. They are people from all around the world. They are people who are black and brown and so-called white. They are people of African descent, of Asian descent, of European descent, of American, North and South American descent. But there are so many more people than that. There are people from our stories of faith, like Abraham and Sarah, and Jacob and Isaac and their wives, and Moses and Aaron and Miriam. So many stories and so many people. And there are people from the New Testament. There's Mary and Martha, and Mary, the mother of Jesus, and there's Peter and John and all of the disciples that followed Jesus. And then there's Paul and there's Peter, the one who wrote all the letters. There's just a whole passel of people. There are also people of faith from the years of history. There's Augustine, there's St. Francis of Assisi and St. Clare of Assisi. There's Thomas Aquinas. There's just all these people in the circle. And there are more people than that. There are those who taught us about God through poetry like Shakespeare and Gerard Manley Hopkins. There are those who taught us about God through music. There are those who taught us about God through all of the arts. And I bet you can think of who that would be. And there are more people than that. There are people who fought for human rights. There is Martin Luther King Jr., Fannie Lou Hamer, Carlton A.G. Eversley, Rosa Parks, and John Lewis. But there are even more people than that. There are the people who are the saints of this space here. Many of them, these folks from our lives and from our loves who we went to church with. You'll remember them with me. There was Saint Donis Sacron, who taught us grace and love and to remember the child in each of us. There was Saint Ghazi Sacron, who taught us that love crosses all boundaries of race, politics, and religion. There is Saint Walter Harrelson, who connected us to the Bible as a living, breathing guide in the world. There is Anne Atkins, who showed us that grief is holy as laughter. There's Saint Lou Leake, who was an example of strong leadership, a woman in leadership when very few women were. There was Saint Jennifer Allen, who showed us what it means to fiercely and quietly love. There's Saint Ed Chrisman, to whom we were all young whippersnappers and his favorite. There was Saint Anne Shields, whose art continues to call us to more justice and more beauty. Saint David Catron, who taught us if we must choose between certainty and growth, we should choose growth. And Nona Reeves, who taught us that service can take many forms, including gardening and crafts. And Saint Linda Engel, whose gift was service to others. She was a good friend and colleague with boundless compassion. And Saint Harry Heilig, whose sense of adventure taught us that God and the world are bigger than we think. And there was Saint Lucille Harris, who lived by this saying, "We are here to share love and work for justice for all people, to bring a little more heaven to earth and brighten a corner in some small way. The spirit of love is the most important gift to cultivate." and Saint Carl Harris, who believed in the presence of beauty and love. Saint David Marshall, who lived big and loved strong, especially his pets and friends and his husband. And Saint Ed Adams, who loved fiercely also, whether person or pet, and defended them, cared for them, and cherished them every minute. Saint Bill Humbert, who showed us what it means to be generous. Saint Phil Hamrick, who showed God's glory through science. Saint Marjorie Angel, who made a joyful noise for God. Saint Mac Bryan, who inspired people to enter the fight for civil rights. Saint Helen Pritchard, who fed those who hungered for grace and food. Saint Anne Francis, who always gave her heart. And Saint Leo Ellison, who reminded us to keep strong in body, in mind, and in spirit. And now we come to this year's saints. Saint Marcus Gully, who reminded us often to just do the next thing. Saint John Prine, who sang about laughter and love. Saint Bonnie Covey, who was before her time, yet whose laughter was deep. Saint Ruth Bader Ginsburg, who gave us hope and worked for liberation by the law. And Saint Jean Taylor, who excelled in taking care of others. And finally, we wanted to recognize all the people who have been killed by COVID. Every one of them brought love, life, and complexity to humanity. In Godly Play, we often light candles. And we will light a candle for Marcus Gully, for John Prine, this is half the fun. The box says damp proof. Oh, look, here. For COVID victims. For Bonnie Covey. For Ruth Bader Ginsburg. And for Jean Taylor. Will you pray with me, please? We give thanks, O God most holy, for the feet that walk this journey before us, for the saints and sinners who lived and loved under the shadow of your wings. We give thanks, O God most holy, for those who dared to travel the road together as lovers and strangers, as friends and disciples, for as long as they had breath. We give thanks, O God most holy, for the hearts that pulsed with justice and grace, that sang in sync with your commandments, that bled to show us your kingdom. We give thanks, O God most holy, for the tears, the heartache, the grief that connect us to one another and to those who have died, knowing that death will not last forever. We give thanks, O God most holy, for the witness of all creation to your eternal glory, for the mountains and trees, the rivers and seas, and the beauty of your new day. We give thanks. Amen. In godly play, we don't just blow out candles. What we do is we change the candles. Watch as I change the candle for Bonnie Covey. See the smoke? See how it spreads throughout the room? Bonnie's presence stays with us because we change the light into the air and we breathe it in. And I have to say, you don't have to be here to feel Bonnie Covey's spirit. So we will also change the light of Ruth Bader Ginsburg. And we will change the light of Jean Taylor. We'll change the light of John Prine. We'll change the light of Marcus Gully. And we'll change the light of the COVID victims throughout the world. Now I wonder, which was your favorite part of the story? I wonder, what part of the story could we do without? And I wonder, as we think about our living circle, the circle of those around us, who among us will be the saints of the future? I love all these saints, all of these saints. And I love you, and I love being your pastor. Amen.